Right there they are. Excellent. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Taylor Tuesday. And we'll get a few more people popping in here as we get going along. We're excited to have one of our superstar young entrepreneurial physicians speaking to us tonight, which I think you'll find very, very fascinating. And talk a little more about Patrick in just a moment too. Just a reminder for everybody, in our usual startup details is you remember that you can watch this webinar after the fact. I have to remember kind of coming back. Ira and I did these for 2 years and I've had a little hiatus, so I got to get warmed up again, guys. So anyway, you can go back and watch any of the webinars again on taylormedical.com. And just click where you can see all the arrows pointing to here. You won't see the red arrows on the website, but you will see webinars at the top, and you're able to go back and watch any of these. And I think once you see a lot of the detail that Dr. McEneaney has here, you're going to want to go back and take a look at some of these great pieces of information he's adding tonight. Just a reminder for everybody, for those of you who hear this a million times, I'm sorry, but for those of you who might be new, please come along and become part of Taylor Medical. It's, send your products list that you have, names of vendors, descriptions of items that you use. I know that it's been a real problem getting some things like lidocaine and even dexamethasone for a while, and this whole supply chain has made a problem. But Carla and her team has been very helpful about finding some of those avenues that we haven't been able to perhaps find in practice. But send us your list. Current vendors, descriptions of the items that you need, manufacturers, if you have the SKUs or the sizes, that's very helpful. Do I get a 30 ml bottle? Do I get a 5? You're getting single injection, whatever you like to use. You can put them on a spreadsheet. You can put them on a Word document. You can put them wherever is easiest for you. And I think you'll be surprised at the remarkable savings that you can get. We're hearing some people get up to 40%. Not everyone's across the board at that level, but everyone gets a substantial benefit from this too. So please, if you're not registered, take the time to register. I know I was just at the APMA meeting, Patrick, and we had a lot of people asking about, coming on board, which is great. So we're excited about that. So tonight, we're really lucky to have Dr. Patrick McEneaney. Patrick has several facilities in Northern Illinois and basically around Chicago, Patrick, right?
Yeah, we've got 15 offices around the Chicagoland area.
There you go. And so Patrick is one of our young entrepreneurial physicians who's built a mega practice and is one of the few that enjoys that administrative part of building a machine like that burns a lot of people out, but he's handling it well and making it work successfully. So Patrick, I'm going to disappear from video and mute myself and let you do your thing. So you're off.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction. So tonight we're going to be talking about tips and tricks for your practice. This is just kind of a general overview of things that I've done in my practice that I think have been very helpful for me. Obviously, everything's not going to work for everybody, but here are some things that I think have been helpful for me, and take what you will from these. No disclosures pertaining to this lecture. Essentially, this is just going to be kind of a verbal dump of some stuff that's worked very well for me. Again, I'm Dr. Patrick McEneaney, owner and CEO of Northern Illinois Foot and Ankle Specialists. We got 15 offices in the Chicagoland area with 20 podiatrists, double board certified, and co-director of the Northwest Illinois Foot and Ankle Fellowship Foundation. And I'm past president of the Illinois Podiatric Medical Association. So here's some stuff that I utilize in my practice. So number one is colored sheets. And this seems like a simple idea, but it's been pretty helpful. Anybody who sees HMO patients knows that there's different rules on what DME DME they can have, what kind of products you can supply them, when you need referrals and stuff. And so this whole idea started when we had our white super bills. It was like, how do we get the HMO patients and separate them so I'm not dispensing DME without a referral or not doing something that may not get reimbursed for the patient. And so I started off using these gold sheets, and the gold meant stop and kind of think about what you're doing. And over time, this is kind of enveloped into a few other different ones. And so, we do have some Medicaid patients or patients that have Medicare with Medicaid as a supplemental. And so anything with Medicaid in our practice is then purple. And purple says, hey, this is Medicaid, there's different set of rules for this type of patient. We do the same with people who are in skilled nursing facilities. We use a different color for them, a light blue. Green is self-pay. I think that why we use that color is obvious. But you can kind of separate these. We even have a different color for workers' comp. Again, it's something the different color tells you, hey, stop what you're doing, different set of rules, so that you don't make any mistakes with that. Number two is dispensable and cash pay products. I think a lot of people have talked about different cash pay products you can have in your office. Don't try to have every single one of them. Have the ones that work for you. Sell products that you actually believe in. And I've even been guilty of this too. You see a product, you're like, oh, great. And then next thing you know, 2 years later, you've got a bunch of them that are expired and you're throwing out. So sell products that only you know how you're going to sell and that you have decent margins in, where it's actually worthwhile carrying on the shelf. Ask. So this is something that I found in my patients, with my patients. A lot of times you're here and you're talking to people, and all of a sudden, you're in a rush. You're trying to move forward and get to that next patient and get through with your day. But you need to stop for a minute and just ask patients, is there anything else you wanted to discuss? And you'd be surprised how often this triggers. Oh, I have another question about my foot. Oh, my other ankle's been hurting me also. Which allows you to then, spend more time with the patient and maybe trigger a next level office visit. It also may trigger a new x-ray, a piece of DME that you didn't think so. Or it might be a patient that was, ready to be discharged, and all of a sudden they say, well, what about my bunion? And what should I do about that? Do you see these a lot? I've even had people, do you have any other questions? And they say, yeah, my son has these flat feet. They're achy and sore. What do I do about it? And so just don't be in a rush and take a minute to ask, is there anything else that you wanted to discuss? Pre-authorization. So these prior auths for MRIs, we currently have an MRI in our office. We've gotten to that point. But I found that, I was calling for pre-authorization for an MRI that someone else was making money on, not me, and I was spending my office staff and time. And so I actually worked with one of my MRI facilities, and they, when I was doing MRIs with them, and I make them call. If they need to request a note or request information, they do that from people in my office, but I have them call for me. And when they can't get through and they can't get the approval, which they work pretty hard to do, then, I'll step in and do the peer-to-peer when needed be. But otherwise, why should I do all the work so that they can make money? Obviously, you want to help your patients, but they're the one making money off that test. Negotiation. My dad taught me a long time ago, everything's negotiable. And so, prior to using GPOs and working with Taylor, I would negotiate with my vendors. How much is this? Okay, if I buy 10 of them, will you give me a discount? How much lower can you go on this stuff? I think a lot of times we assume that these are the prices, and they say these are the lowest prices. Well, I'm going to tell you that vendors will go lower than the prices they're going. You don't always have to order, 1,000 things to get them to lower prices either. But talk about discounts with them. And I think, again, being part of Taylor, they get to negotiate with the vendors for you and make your life easier, so you don't have to do as much of this. But you can still ask for things if they're not part of Taylor. Ask for trial products. People will say, what kind of, I've got this new DME I want you to look at. I'll say, well, send me one. I had one time a company asked me, well, what DME item do you want us to send? And I said, as a sample, I said, well, whatever one you want me to buy. Send me one of each. I'll take a look at it and let you know. So also talk to colleagues and find out what kind of pricing they are getting. Because you'll find people tell me, oh yeah, I got this great deal. I'm paying this for a boot. Now I'm paying $8 less. And so if you talk to other people, sometimes they'll be able to clue you in on to what they're actually paying for stuff too. Watch invoices. This is something that, is kind of the underside of some of the ordering. And again, this is where, with, you know, a group like Taylor, you're more protected. But I've seen it where companies just start increasing pricing without any notification. You know, you're paying X amount of dollars for a boot, and then, you know, next week all of a sudden the price goes up $3. And you look at it and say, hey, how come we're paying so much? And you know, I've had other times where stuff goes up and I look back and I say, hey, this has gone up 3 months ago. How come nobody found this? And so you have to be watching all the invoices, and whoever's looking at them has to know what the pricing is and has to look to see if things got changed without notice. I've also had where, you know, we're paying shipping for something and the company doesn't have enough of them. So what they do is you order 5 boots or order 10 boots and they ship you 6 of them. And then all of a sudden next week they ship you 4 more and they charge you shipping twice, when if they'd shipped them all together, it would have been a lot cheaper. And so I had one time where I had 6 DME items from one order shipped all separately because they were coming from different warehouses. So don't let the companies, you know, if they start splitting shipping and sending you stuff and it's costing you more money because of what they did, don't stand for that and let them know, you know, I'm paying for shipping once. If you're shipping from 7 different spots across the country, that's your problem, not mine. And then have somebody verify that what you ordered is what you got, that you got the correct product, the correct brand, the correct size, the correct quantity. Because I've seen these change too, where vendors, they run out of something, so they just substitute something in without asking you. Who is in charge? So you know, as we got to be a little bit bigger, and again, not to the size we are now, but I found that I was, you know, kind of managing everything all at once. And as we moved into a second office, I was realizing I couldn't do all this myself. So what we did is we found, you know, a front desk person to be in charge. You know, we elevated a front desk member to be a lead front desk person, and we took a medical assistant and made them a lead medical assistant, someone who was in charge so that I didn't have to be all the time. And then when something wasn't right, I could walk to the lead front desk person and say, you know, what's going on up here? And, you know, I'd say, this is your job to know, and this is your job to get under control. And when you do that, you know, people tend to take responsibility. And then as we got bigger, we had supervisors kind of watching the leads in each position too. So, but give responsibility to other people. Don't try to do everything yourself. If so, all you're going to do is drive yourself batty. Trust me, been there, done that. It'll free up a lot of time too. And again, like I said, you'll have one person who's responsible. So when things go down, it's not everybody saying, I don't know, that there's a person who will have a real answer for you. So if you're in an HMO, you know, target your HMO doctors. You know, when you're in the HMO, there's a limited number of doctors they can refer to. And so what happens is that if there's only 5 podiatrists in their HMO, they don't have many choices. And they may not refer to you regularly, but you can essentially target them, tell them that, hey, I'm in your HMO, I'm someone you can refer to. And once they get comfortable referring within the HMO, then they'll have patients who are non-HMO who then they'll be able to refer to you also. You know, and make them aware of all your services and be extra available to them as far as getting patients in. You know, I give them the back line to get into the office and get patients in. I say, if you ever need someone in acutely, just give me a call. We'll take care of it for you. And see what you can do to make their lives easier. One of the things I always ask docs when I go in and talk to them, when I'm trying to get referrals, I'll say, hey, what kind of patients don't you like to see? And I'll be talking to a primary care doctor and be like, I hate warts. You know, I can never get rid of them. They're a pain to deal with. People always complain and they always hurt. And I say, great, send all that to me. That's perfectly fine. And I said, and then I'll turn around and say, well, one of the other things I also like to see is I like to see, you know, people with heel pain. If you have people with heel pain, I'm really good at this. After you've done your initial stuff, send it over to me. So again, these people, again, limited amount of referral capability to other doctors. And if you're you're part of the club and you just have to let them know. Reviews, you know, we all need reviews now. We all know that some faceless person that's on a Google review knows more than anybody out there. So we all need reviews, but you can actually ask patients for these reviews. You know, I have patients who, after they're done with surgery or after they're done with, having a lot of pain and you get it better, they go, thank you so much. How can I ever say thank you? And I said, go online, leave me a review. And you have to ask for it. If you don't ask for it, people aren't going to think about it. People who are upset because they owe money or they didn't receive the care they need, they'll tell everybody till they're blue in the face. People who are happy often just walk off and don't do much. So you have to ask these people to support you and ask them to give you good reviews. And again, the best time is when a patient is still in the office. If you say, hey, please, please give me a review when you get home. I even made little cards up and people would say, hey, where do I go? And I would have a little card that said, please review me on Google and Yelp and Facebook. So that's something that can be done also. So another thing to do is look for money-saving jobs. So one of the things that I found is I was paying a whole bunch for IT. And I had these IT companies who only pretty much did what they want. And every time I seemed to have a computer problem, they would say, oh, you need to buy a new computer. Don't worry, we sell computers. And they were getting commissions on the computers they would sell. And they would always try to turn around and sell me new equipment instead of fixing the equipment that I have. And so what I did is I wound up hiring an IT person. And, I was big enough where I could hire a full-time IT person. But what you can also do is you can hire a part-time IT person that comes in, 1 or 2 days a week to, clean up your computers and deal with issues. The same goes for a bookkeeper or some sort of maintenance or janitor. We've had janitors we've hired who, work 2 days a week and they come to a couple offices and clean in the evening, but they're an employee. And so they clean the place you want and the way you want. Because I found a lot of times that when you have cleaning people, they do a great job when they first hire them. And they do a wonderful job for like the first 2 or 3 months. And then all of a sudden it seems like they're skimping, they're missing spots, and you have to talk to them and redirect them, and they do a good job for a few months and then they're back to their own way. And so, look at what kind of positions you have. And if you can't find a full-time person, find a part-time person if that meets your needs a little better. Time. Never avoid doing something in clinic because of time. I've had patients complain to me when they've seen other doctors with other practices, and they'll say, I talked to the doctor, I had another problem, he wouldn't see that. One of them went as far as saying, you only get one problem per visit, make another appointment if you have another problem. So, always make sure you see the patients, and we've all sat there, patient has, a bunch of things, you work through them and they say, oh, I got one more thing. Make sure you go down that path with people. That may, open up another procedure. It may open up another, x-ray or something else. And, if you're finding that you don't have time to do all this, your schedule's either too full or you don't have enough staff. And some docs I know run bare bones and they're shooting their own x-rays and, putting on their own cast and doing every single thing themselves. Use your staff to your advantage so that you can get more done during the day. And maybe you could have a minute to breathe or do a chart. And this kind of pulls into a little section I have on scribes. You'll see this little tub at the end on the side there. At one point, we'd make notes in paper charts and then transfer it to an EMR. And I found that I had this little tub full of charts, and I'd be bringing it to and from work every day, and I'd be doing them at home, and sometimes till 1 in the morning. And on the weekends I'd play catch up, and I'd put a card table in my family room and watch TV and spend most of the night Friday, almost all day Saturday, and part of Sunday, just trying to get my charts and get caught up on everything to start up the next week. And I finally hit a breaking point where I'm like, I can't do all this documentation well, and run my business and get all these charts done the way I needed to. So I wound up picking up a Scribe, and I found it was a significant increase in productivity. Less time doing notes meant for an easier day, less burnout. There was better note quality because they had one single job to take care of. And eventually my Scribe in her spare time started doing audit protection for us and would audit charts and kind of look at other doctors and look for to make sure we were compliant with everything we should be doing. And it was less time, at a computer while you're in the visit with the patient, or less time writing stuff down, to transfer over later. I can look my patients in the eyes and actually do things. And my visits became much more efficient. My scribe takes notes for me, does the history of history of present illness. When we're doing an exam, I'll start commenting, there's pain over the plantar fascia insertion, pain along the medial slip of the plantar fascia, and I'll kind of dictate some of the stuff out so they can put that in while I'm seeing the patient. And they help put care plans together and drop my diagnosis and billing. But additionally, she preps for the morning, looks out for patients that need, x-rays. It says, hey, so-and-so's coming in for surgery. Do you want them to have an x-ray? And so that way my staff can do that before they even get the patient into a room. She pulls test results, and we'll look for kind of kinks in the schedule to see how we make them more smoothly. And then again, when we come out of a room, she's able to tell the next medical assistant, all right, Dr. McEneaney needs this, this, and this for this patient. Also educate him on this as I'm walking to the next room. And, the consistency and quality, people always have concerns that maybe the scribe won't do a good job. And what I'll tell you is that the scribes do as well as you teach them. So if you really work with them and teach them how to do a good job, they will. People think they'll interrupt patient care, and I beg to say that they're less likely to do that. I have patients who refuse to talk to me, or refuse to talk to any of my staff over the phone. We all have those. I'm only talking to the doctor. Surprising, they'll actually talk to my scribe, because they know the scribe's part of my intimate care team, and that they were in the visit and they actually understand what's happening. So I've found that was a big thing for this. And a lot of docs think that maybe they just don't need a scribe. It's going to be a waste of money. And I challenge you to say, what's your time worth an hour? And look at your per visit value of what you charge, and how many patients you see an hour. And I'll tell you that a lot of people on this call, you may be worth $300, $400, $500 an hour plus in what you see and what you generate with your patients. And then what happens? You go home and you wind up doing all these charts, or you stay late. Or I know docs that finish their day an hour early so they can do charts. And a scribe may only cost you $15 to $20 an hour. And so if I told you, you could, if you stayed an extra, if you stayed even an extra 15 minutes it's a one extra patient a day, that potentially could pay for your scribe all day and make your life easy by the time you get home. And so if you haven't looked at this, you may really want to look at this. You can have a physical scribe in the office. There's also services that have scribes that, are there on your computer and actually, sit on a laptop and listen into the visit and type it for you. And of course, you let the patients know that you have this service, and then the note's done for you, and they just charge you per visit or charge you per hour. So look into stuff like this. It'll make you more efficient and really just make your life easier and less hectic. I always make sure that when I have a scribe, they have clear defined roles so duties don't overlap, and don't diminish what your scribe does. So I always have the scribe report to me directly, where the medical assistants report to a different manager. And again, my scribe does a whole bunch of different things, which you'll kind of see on this slide. And when I'm not in the office, there's a whole bunch more that my scribe does for me. And again, you can hire a service. You can if you have a good MA, you can kind of elevate them to this position, or you can try to find someone with experience. And just remember how valuable your time is. Discharge. I was told a long time ago, don't discharge patients. That patients discharge themselves, and I say that kind of half-heartedly. Obviously you don't have patients come back that don't need to. You just let them move on to if they're doing well. But what I do want to tell you is that patients want to be followed up on. They want to know what's going on, and they want you to reassure them. So I have patients who, let's say they're in an orthotic, and I see them at their the first visit after they get their orthotics, and they're doing great. I'll I know docs that'll say, okay, well, you got your orthotic, you're doing great. I'm done with you. Your discharge, call me back if you need me. And I tend to see those patients back in a few months because, we don't know if they're just doing well right now or if this is going to flare up again. Are they being compliant with their treatment plan? And I have patients who, come back and, a couple months later, all of a sudden they are having problems, or, they're not sure about something, or they don't know how often to wear their orthotics, or maybe a corner's bothering them or rubbing and needs to be adjusted. And, I also sometimes find new problems. People like, my plantar fascia is doing great, but I kept the appointment because my bunion's bothering me. And so, my point is, don't be real quick to discharge a patient. If patients are doing very well, they will cancel their visits and say, I'm doing great, I don't need to see the doctor anymore. And that's a perfectly fine phone call, for your staff. But, other times you'll get into a position, again, where, I've had patients come in and I'll say, okay, well, you were seeing another doctor, what happened? They'll say, well, the other doctor, told me, that I didn't need to come back, but I was still having some problems. And I'll be like, well, why didn't you call me? He goes, well, he told me that I didn't need to come back. So I figured that's all that he could do. And so, I don't want you guys to be in that position where you stop seeing patients, or patients stop coming in because they think you can't do more for them, because we know that you can do lots more for them. Just the word give. I've gotten a bad habit of saying, okay, we'll give you a cam walker boot, and patients would say, oh, the doctor gave it to me, I didn't know I was going to be charged for it. So don't use the word give. Give equals free. I use the words dispense, or if we're using cash pay items, I say available for purchase. That way the patients have a clear distinction of what the intent is and that they will be charged for certain things. Amazon, to me, this is a dirty word. I never sell products in my office that you can get on Amazon. I've had patients where, I sell a certain type of insert, an off-the-shelf one, and I sell it for, let's say $40, and they get it on Amazon. One of them got it on Amazon for $38 with free shipping. And she came back after she bought it from me and wanted a refund. Not the $2 refund. She went on Amazon, bought the same one, and was trying to return the whole thing to me over $2. And I offered to give the lady a discount. She said, no, I want my money back. You tried to rip me off. This is cheaper on Amazon. So, I make sure that anytime I carry a product in my office, number one, that it's not available on Amazon, because I don't want to deal with those problems. And I don't want to lose a patient over $2. So I tend to use a lot of products that are unbranded, or I use products that I know I can get cheaper from Amazon, but that's becoming less and less of an opportunity lately. DME, be aware of your DME costs. This is an older slide, so don't go by these prices, but at one point I was dispensing an L1902 that I was reimbursing, that was costing me $52.25. And Humana was reimbursing me $51.15 for. So when I was dispensing this, I was losing 90 cents. And, you have to be aware of, if you're paying your staff and everybody to do this type of stuff, you're going to lose money, and you'll also waste their time in the same thing. So, there's also costs associated with ordering, stocking, dispensing, billing, and then you have no guarantee that the patient's actually going to give you that money. So, what we did in this situation is that product that cost that, we realized that our margins weren't that great, and so we discontinued that product, and then looked for cheaper ones. And again, this is also where it comes in negotiating pricing. If a product's defective, I've had times where the bladders on these cam walker boots are blown out, or the patient wears it for like a week and all of a sudden something breaks on it. We all know these are not as durable as they used to be. They're all probably made in the same factory in China. But if a product's defective, I always say it's not your patient's problem. It's not my problem. It should be the supplier's problem, and I hold them responsible. If I have a broken boot, I'll say, hey, this patient wore it for a week. They were being reasonable with it, and they had a problem. I'd expect you guys send me a new one, and they will. If you have a patient who's worn the boot for 3 months and has been hiking mountains with it, it's a different story. You know, I don't think that that's your supplier's problem, but you know, be aware that you know, once in a while some of these products, you know, do break, and if they do, you know, don't leave yourself on the hook for it. Quantity versus quality. You know, number of patients does not necessarily equal how much money you make. You know, spend time with your patients, and it's what you do with your patients. And I had a patient who told me like a couple months ago, and he goes, Dr. McEneaney, he goes, you know, I know you're busy, and sometimes you know, you're not in the room as long as I'd like you to be. He goes, but I know when I've really needed you, you've been there. And he's like, and like how much time you spent on those visits, he's like, it still carries over today. I know that if I have a big problem, that I'll have the amount of time I need. And patients think that way, even if they don't verbalize it. So, you know, make sure that you give the patients the quality they need. And, you know, where I have certain patients who, they come into the office and they want to get in and out as quickly as possible. They don't want an explanation on you know, how plantar fasciitis happens. They just want the tools to get better. And then I have, you know, people who are engineers who, you know, want me to draw the Windlass mechanisms out and explain it to them. So just be aware of all this, and you know, kind of read your patient, but spend the time that they need. And I found that a lot of times when you spend the time with the patient, you do wind up with a higher per visit value for your billing. And remember, time equals trust. Micromanaging. Okay, so this was as I became manager and, you know, eventually kind of CEO of the practice I'm in, and right now we have 101 employees. You know, I hear from my management staff that I'm micromanaging. You know, that's a dirty word. Everybody's, you know, nobody wants to be micromanaged. And I didn't think I was micromanaging. And I came across this article about delegating versus tasking. And, you know, I'm familiar with delegating, but I hadn't really heard the word tasking before. And essentially what the article said is that, you know, delegating is when you give somebody something to do and you don't expect to follow up on it. So I'm giving you this job. I want you to follow to the end and only get a hold of me if you have an issue. And the other is tasking. Tasking is when you want somebody to do some sort of a job, but you want them to check in with you along the way. And before it's like they make the final decision or follow through all the way, you want them to check with you. And this article talked about how people who managers often and CEOs thought they were tasking stuff to people. They wanted to be involved in the major points along the way with a certain job. And the people who they were giving it to thought they were delegating. And so when you start checking in, thinking you're tasking with the employee, they just think you're looking over their shoulder and that you're not letting them do their job and you're micromanaging. And so in my office now, one of the things that I do is I say, hey, I'm tasking this to you. And it sets up the expectation. We have this whole conversation about these two things. And it sets up the expectation that I'm checking in along the way, and I have a reason for that. And then, you know, I'll say when I'm delegating this to you, I don't expect to hear from it again unless there's a major roadblock. And I found since I've done that, I'm getting less of those, you're delegating me or you're micromanaging me. I feel micromanaged. I feel smothered types of talks from my employees. And it's very freeing to hand stuff off to people and not and know that you're not going to check it along the way, but you can trust that if there is a problem, they'll come find you. This will actually free up a lot of time for you too. Patient intake. This was an issue where we would have a lot of delay at the front desk. You know, you have that patient come in who you hand them your packet of papers, and I think ours is like 4 right now with like 2 more signature pages. And, you know, it takes them 35 minutes to fill out. And that new patient now is 35 minutes late to the visit, even though they were on time. And, you know, we started by saying, okay, come in early, come in 15 minutes early and fill out your paperwork. Well, some people don't come in early, and some people fill out their paperwork fast and they're waiting longer. So, the evolution of this was next that we said, all right, why don't you print and fill out your paperwork online? And we show them where the link was on the website, or we email them a packet of papers to fill out, which helped because about more than half the patients would fill it out ahead of time. They'd walk in, hand it in, be all ready to go. But there were some people that didn't have printers. People would forget or just disregard it altogether and just show up. And then all of a sudden, they still have to fill out all the paperwork. So there are services, and my EMR has the ability where patients can actually fill out the paperwork online and send it into us. And some patients do a great job with that, but even less so did that than actually printed it out and brought it in. So one of the things we're doing right now is we'll actually, we have staff to sit on the phone and actually talk to the patient for 5 to 10 minutes and get all the key information over the phone. So when these patients come in, and they'll literally ask about their which medication you're on. Okay, go grab your pill bottles. Let's talk about those. And they get all that information ahead of time so that I don't have the delay. And yes, you're using your staff time to do that, but then it's all in the EMR before they even show up. And you're able to get them in efficiently, and then you have all the information you need. So look at these other options if you're just having people show up and fill out things when they get there. Again, it was always happening that the last patient before lunch was a new patient and had paperwork to fill out. And, here we are 35 minutes into lunch before I even get to think about what I'm eating. So utilize these services also. Medical assistants, make them an extension of you. They can do more than just put people in rooms. So after we do like a nail procedure, I have them go over post-procedure instructions. I have them fit and explain how to use the DME that their patients are using. I have them go over pre-surgical education when patients are being booked for surgery. They have a whole script they go through about, keeping your foot dry and about, where we go to have surgery and what non-weight bearing means, and, talking to people about all the different things that go along with surgery. They can also do wound care instructions. You'll do a wound debridement. Patient will have a wound dressing, won't know how to put it on. You can sit there and spend your time doing that, or you can empower your medical assistants to go over it with the patients. And if you train them well, you can just say, hey, we're doing this, this, and this, and they'll know, the 2-minute script to go over with the patients. Financial tips, have financing options for big ticket items. You can, take deposits for big ticket items. You can break stuff into payment plans once it hits for patients. So have that available. I don't offer it right away, but when patients say, well, that's a lot of money, I can't afford that right now, we do have financing options available. For surgery, we take deposits. We look up their benefits ahead of time. And if, let's say they have they have $500 left on their deductible, then we may take a $250 deposit. And this will be in case they owe us money from surgery, but also in case they cancel, we have a cancellation policy. We've had patients who cancel the day of surgery just because they changed their mind, or because they, not because they're sick or had like a major family issue. We just had people who bail out in surgery. And this kind of started when we had one patient who canceled surgery 3 times. And 3 times I'm standing around the day of because the patient canceled last minute. So again, we don't cancel, we don't take these cancellation fees. It's not a way to make money, but it's a way to kind of ensure that these patients are serious about surgery and aren't planning on wasting your time. Terms, know what CCI edits are, know what MUEs are. I'm still surprised when I talk to people how many people don't know what these are. I'm not going to go into these today, but if you aren't familiar with these, get familiar with these terms. Learn what NCDs are, learn what the LCDs are, and learn what kind of information's in them, because you'd be surprised the whole world of billing and coding and compliance that opens up once you start to know these things. Helpful websites. So around us, we go to our CGS website. This is where we check the AFO same and similars. So before we dispense any AFO in our office to a Medicare patient, we're on the website and we're checking their status to make sure that they haven't had a DME item that's an AFO for that limb in the last 5 years. It's also a great place to check home health status if you're dispensing any type of wound dressing like A codes. We also use Connex to verify benefits and eligibility with Medicare. we look up claims and then also can process claims there also. Remember, that's Medicare only though. Again, I'm Dr. Patrick McEneaney. We're going to field questions here. My email's there. It's Dr. McEneaney, Illinois Foot. If you have any questions on this kind of stuff, let me know. I'm always happy to help people and give you more information so that you can be successful also.
That was great. Excellent. Thank you, Patrick. That was super. I do have a couple of questions for you. You talked about giving the staff the delegation versus tasking. What kind of autonomy do you give to some of your leaders do you have like caps on capital purchases or things that they do or don't do? How do you control that?
Yeah. So, what I do is, I have 101 employees. So, I can't be monitoring every single payment, but, we have, I have a marketing person who has a decent sized marketing budget. And so when I talked to her, I said, listen, anything that's over $1,000, I want you to approve first. Anything under $1,000, you can go ahead and if you feel like it's an appropriate use of our money, go right ahead. And she has a spending budget for the year that she has to fall within for that. For DME items and things like that, I'll say, here's the stock we want in the office. We've got our 4-size cam walker boots and tall and short. I want to have 3 of each in each size. So order enough so that we always have that kind of stock in this office. So what you do is you set up parameters on what can be spent and then what needs approval past that. And, what I found that over time is that, just about everybody follows those things. And a lot of times, I didn't even have to say anything. Where it comes in new is when you get new employees that kind of don't know the culture and don't know, where the boundaries are. And so I set them with smaller boundaries. And I may give them a credit card that only has a $500 limit. And that way, if they really screw up, I'm only on the hook for $500. Or I'll have them order through somebody else who I trust to approve prior to doing that.
That's excellent. The other question is, how do you deal with your no-shows?
Yeah, so we have a no-show policy where if you don't show up, we have the potential to charge you for your visit. It's not something that I use often. It's kind of more of an empty threat. But when patients sign off on that, they realize that that there could potentially be consequences. And I had a patient one time who had missed 2 visits, and he was late again. And we called him, and he goes, "I'm in New York. I'm busy." And they're like, "Well, you've had this appointment with the doctor. You've missed it 3 times." He's like, "I don't care," and he hung up on us. So I sent him a bill for his missed visits, and so that's one way we do it. But and again, I don't utilize that often. It's more of an empty threat most of the time. But what I tend to do is we have a service right now through our EMR where it'll actually text the people the day before and let them know they have a visit. And we actually have the options where people can pick whether they want a robocall, whether they want a text, or whether they want an email. And you can get all 3 if you want. And it's all set up and it doesn't take staff time. Because I used to have staff on the phone saying, "All right, Mr. Smith, waiting for it to ring and leaving messages and stuff." So it just became very time consuming. And so that's another thing we do to work with our patients.
You made a great point, Patrick, about Google reviews and reviews in general. And do you track those? Do you keep a log of those, or do you respond or anything like that?
So we respond at times. I get a kind of a message anytime someone leaves a review. After we see patients, we actually send out a message, and say, "Hey, if you had a good experience, thanks for visiting our office. If you had a good experience, please leave us a review." And that kind of sparks people to leave reviews. If people leave bad reviews, we contact them. And, you don't start a fight online and start kicking up dirt and saying, you didn't do this and you didn't do this. And, it's not my fault because, you have to be careful of HIPAA. And, you can get yourself in trouble if you start releasing patient information over that. Even if they start the argument, you can't finish it. And so I've found that, anything online, you can't, you're at a disadvantage. So don't start a fight online, but instead call the patient. And, there's 2 different complaints that I see from patients. One is because of money. If a patient owes money, you're never going to be able to satiate those patients. They owe money, they owe money. You can't do anything about it. And I don't get upset when patients are upset at my doctors because they owe money. I get upset when they complain about service. Now, if they're complaining about service after they owe money, you have to sort that out very carefully. But if they're upset because of just, how long they had to wait on the phone, what a medical assistant said to them, that they felt they were, that they were made to wait too long. Those are things that I take seriously. And I say, listen, thank you for the feedback. I can't fix stuff if I don't know about it. So I'm going to go ahead and talk to my staff about that. And hopefully next time it won't be like that. And you'd be surprised, like patients will come back if they feel like they were heard.
No, that's great. I found fascinating. One of the things you talked about was return appointments. And one thing I think that I see anyway is a lot of younger doctors in particular, not only, but younger doctors who are now in the treat and street mentality of a surgeon don't think that way. And so, that's how you build your practice.
Absolutely. And, I was at a VA hospital at one point, and we were so busy that we barely had time for, things like plantar fasciitis because we had so many infections and so many diabetics with limb threatening problems. And we only had so much clinic time. And so, we would take a new patient and, plantar fasciitis and send them for orthotics and here's physical therapy and here's a shot. And, if that doesn't work, give us a call in 2 months, which, worked for a lot of those patients. Then they have to come back a whole bunch. But, in private practice world, that doesn't work as well. People are looking for something different. And so you have to read the patients and you have to tell them that there's a next step. And a lot of times I'll say, all right, we're doing this today. If this doesn't work, I've got some other stuff in my bag of tricks we can talk about next visit. And you don't have to tell them the entire menu the first day. But, what I do is I foreshadow that there's something else that can be done if we get to that point.
No, that's a very good point. I definitely have seen a pattern of that amongst younger physicians in particular. And you almost think they're the ones who you're begging people to come in because you want to grow your business,
Right.
As opposed to those of us who get so busy that, it's like finding a spot. So, on that same premise, then, you have a lot of clinics, you have a lot of staff. What about the wait times? And I don't mean in the waiting room, but for appointments. You have a pretty standard protocol for how quickly you get things in?
Yeah. So one of the things we have is I've set up a little sheet in my office, and we have a routine problem, urgent problem, and emergent problem. And so, and they're each labeled with an R, a U, or an E. And, a routine problem, you can kind of figure out what that is, but like an urgent problem is, new heel pain, new types of pain that, have come up. But we have emergent, which someone has an infected ingrown toenail. Someone thinks they broke something. Someone thinks they injured something where the people won't wait and are more likely to go to an urgent care if they don't come in and see me. And so we have all these put together, whereas if someone has, chronic Achilles tendonitis, that's not something that needs to get in same day. And so urgent or emergent stuff gets in same day, urgent stuff gets in within a day or two, and then routine stuff is over 3 days. And so I've given that to my call staff so that they know they can look at a list and say, you have an ingrown toenail. All right, that gets in today.
No, that's a great point. I used to love the patients that would come and they had an urgent problem, at least in their mind, even though it was chronic Achilles tendonitis, because they decided that that was the day they were going. So it made it urgent.
Right. And it's great to take care of those patients. I think access to care right now is one of the things that is most important for patients. I mean, every ortho group by us now, every single one has an injury express clinic where they have one of the orthopedic guys who's in the office available to be pulled out of clinic at any time so that these patients don't go to the hospital and they can suck the patients away from the hospital. And this is how the culture is, but one of the urgent cares by us, they have a billboard and it gives the wait time. There's a 3-minute wait in urgent care right now. And so people could drive by and say, oh, great, I don't have to wait. I can just go in there. It's only going to be a 3-minute wait. And so if you can't compete with that, and obviously it's hard to compete with that, but you can't tell these people that they have to wait a long time. And so, the other thing we'll do sometimes, especially with my docs who are busier, is we'll put 2 blocks a day, and it's a block that says save for same day. And so they'll have 2 15-minute blocks, one in the morning and the afternoon, so that if somebody calls first thing in the morning, there's an 11 o'clock block that something more urgent can get put in. And those blocks almost always fill. And if they don't, then you've got a 15-minute breather, or you can spend a little bit more time with a different patient, or be able to catch up so that you're not running through your lunch break like you always do.
No, those are great points. So I think we'll give you a few minutes of your night back, Patrick. That was great. Hearing some really good comments, and I think there'll be a lot of rereads of this. So thank you. And I know we'd love to have you back and do something similar again. You've got quite the machine, and it's nice to see when our colleagues do well like that.
Thank you.
It's appreciated. So everybody, again, thank you to Dr. McEneaney. And in 2 weeks, again, we will have our next session of Taylor Tuesday. Not sure who's hosting yet, but about customer communication strategies. And you just heard Patrick talking about, ways to talk to patients. And I think it's a dying art. Hey, Patrick, if we could get our HVAC repair people on the same kind of schedule, maybe I could get my house fixed.
Right.
15 days without air conditioning, and despite begging. So there you go. But nevertheless, but thank you, Patrick, and we thank you, all of you. Remember to go to Taylor. If you haven't signed up, please do. A lot of great services that are available, a lot of great savings. But we want to thank everybody, and everyone have an awesome, super evening. Patrick, thanks again.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.